Hello and welcome to another episode of The Heart Chamber. I am your host, Boots Knighton. I am really excited to share my conversation with Michelle Sheely with you today. Michelle was 44 years old when she was diagnosed with heart disease. At the time, she was an avid runner, an outdoor enthusiast, and a vegetarian. She did not fit the mold for someone with heart disease. It took 4 years, 4 blockages, and 4 stents before she was diagnosed with a myocardial bridge in 2019. In that same year, in December of 2019, she had open heart surgery, and she is now advocating for women's heart health. Michelle is a community educator for WomenHeart, the National Coalition for Women with Heart Disease, and she's also a single mom of a 12-year-old daughter. She's also a PTA social chair, and on top of that, she also works as head of sales for an organic dairy company. Michelle and I cover everything in this conversation, from the frustrations of participating in the medical system to the fear of dying to the thrills of not only living but thriving, what it's like to be a single mom, work full-time, and still manage her heart. Thanks again for tuning in today. And if you like what you hear, I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe, leave a review, and donate at www.theheartchamberpodcast.com. Thanks so much. Let's dive in. Thank you, Michelle, for joining today on The Heart Chamber. Michelle and I first met on Facebook, thanks to the Facebook support group. And Michelle is going to share her story of her heart journey with us today.
Thank you so much, Boots, for having me. Any chance that I get to spread the word on heart disease and help anybody who might be going through the things that we've gone through or has questions, I'm always here for, peer support and really just getting the education out there, because I don't want people to suffer like I did. I felt like I suffered for a long time, and through a lot of self-advocacy, I finally got the correct diagnosis. So let me just go tell you what happened. So in 2016, I wasn't your heart disease candidate at all. I was an avid runner. I was a vegetarian. I played soccer. I'm 4 days a week. I was very much in shape, and I started having chest pain when I was running, and I thought maybe I had pulled something from lifting weights, and I thought, oh, probably should go in and get this checked out. Well, they did an EKG, and it was completely normal, and they gave me some Pepsid and told me to go home. 2 days later, I have police knocking on my door, and when I asked why, they said, is Dr. Reddy your doctor? And I said, yes. And the police officer said, Dr. Reddy has been trying to get a hold of you for 2 days, and you have not called her back. Your EKG is not normal, and they need you to give them a call. Within an hour, I was in the ER. And the next day, I had a heart cath to find out that I was almost 100% blocked in my LAD artery. So I got my first stent. Okay. So from there, I dropped 40 pounds. I was even, stepping up even more with exercise and diet. I became a plant-based vegan. And a year later, that same stent is that same LAD artery is blocked again. I get a second stent. 9 months later, I'm running and my heart starts going erratic. I'm in AFib. I have, 3 months after that, I have a cardiac ablation to fix, the timing of my heart. 2 weeks after the cardiac ablation, I'm in heart attack symptoms again. I have another blocked artery, so I get another stent. And this is not supposed to be happening because my total cholesterol is 70 now. Like I said, I'm a plant-based vegan. I'm doing all the right things. And we're just going, I said, what is going on? And so, I'm back in the ER 6 months later, and for chest pain again. This is all heart attack symptoms. And my LAD artery is blocked. And this will be the third step that I have to get in it. But luckily, I got a new doctor from Stanford who had just come over to our hospital. And he said, I think there's something more going on. I want to look further into this. And so when he went in with the heart cath again, he goes, oh, has anybody ever told you have a myocardial bridge? And I said, I had no idea what that was. And so they sent me to Stanford, for further testing. And I did the scans. And they were going to see if that was to determine if I needed the bridge study. And, I'm sitting there with Dr. Schnicker, and she said, based on your scans, you don't need the bridge study. And I said, Dr. Schnicker, look, I want the bridge study. And here's the reason why. I know that my LAD artery is occluding by 7% a month on average. That is the average that it is occluded 3 times. You cannot do bypass graft surgery on an artery that is, in the heart muscle. It won't work. And you know that. And so what's happening is this is going to be a race against time. I'm going to be occluded. And then, so I don't know what to do because I'm either
Mhm.
going to die or
Mhm.
I'm going to be able to have open heart surgery to unroof my artery. And that is going to help. And she said, okay. I said, but we don't know because we can't really tell if we don't have the bridge study. And she said, you know what, Michelle? If you want the bridge study, we're going to give you the bridge study. Within an hour after the bridge study, when I'm in recovery, Dr. Schnicker comes and sits next to me and said, I'm so glad you had us do the bridge study because there is so much damage to your LAD artery that if you don't have unroofing surgery soon, your artery is going to collapse and there'll be nothing we can do for you.
Wow.
Yes, it was very profound, and this is where self-advocacy is so important because I read on, the myocardial bridge group, and this isn't isolated to the myocardial bridge group. This is heart disease everywhere, especially in women, that,
Mhm.
we don't need these surgeries. You don't need this. These aren't myocardial bridges aren't a problem, but they are. In a certain
Mhm.
subset of the population that has them, they are. And so really pushing and pushing and pushing really got me to get the diagnosis that I needed. And so I had unroofing surgery in December of 2019. And I don't think anybody could have prepared me for what that surgery was going to do to my body and how my body was going to react and how long it was going to take to recover. And I was in good shape. I was young.
Mhm.
So, and then, 2 months after or 3 months after heart surgery, then COVID happened. So it's been a stressful recovery. It's been definitely a difficult recovery, but I finally got running again. I'm no longer running. I'm walking now.
Mhm.
Riding my bike, hiking, those kind of things. I can finally do those, but I'm definitely not where I was before I had heart surgery. But
Yeah.
what was happening was because I was an avid runner and running so much and getting my heart rate over, 150 beats per minute is I was actually doing more damage to my artery than good.
Is that because of the stent that were in place?
No, it wasn't. It was because when you have a myocardial bridge, you get turbulent blood flow in the area that is in of that LAD that's in the myocardium because the
Mhm.
heart, every time it beats, it's occluding that artery. And so you're not getting great blood flow. And so what's happening, think of it as if you're walking and you have a shoe that's rubbing up against your ankle and you're getting a blister.
Ah.
So, I mean, that's the metaphor that I can, or the analogy that I can use for that is that irritation was happening. And so it's almost like a turkey baster was taking that plaque and that buildup and pushing it above the LAD artery because it was just like a few centimeters above where the artery is no longer in the myocardium, where it would get occluded. And that's a finding that if you look in all of Dr. Schnicker's research and the research at Stanford, the people who do have occluded arteries because of their myocardial bridge and the plaque, it is just a few centimeters above where the artery comes out of the heart. So that's what was
Mhm.
happening. So ever since I was little, I always had pins and needles in my feet, really cold feet. I just thought my coloring was my coloring. But my mom said when she saw me in the hospital after I had been unroofed, she said, my God, you have color in your face. She had never
Mm.
seen color in my face.
And
And
remind me and the audience how old you were when you had your unroofing surgery.
I was 47. So this
Okay.
all started when I was 44. I'm
Mhm.
50 now. So
Mhm.
yeah, so from 44 to 47, it definitely took that long to find. So 3 to 4 years, they were to find the correct diagnosis for me.
And that's what I'm hearing, that was not true for me. Thankfully, the Facebook support group for myocardial bridging existed during my situation, and I used it to help inform me so I could better advocate for myself, and my process was relatively quick, but on average, I'm hearing it's years for people like yourself. That just has to change.
Well, and
It's so much needless suffering.
it is, but I'll tell you the reason why it takes that long, and one of the reasons is, and this is one of the questions, is being that I am a community educator for WomenHeart, who's the National
Mhm,
Coalition of Women with Heart Disease. We do training at the Mayo Clinic, at the Women's Heart Health Heart Center, with Dr. Sharon Hayes, and she's the head of the Women's Heart Clinic. And so we do an extensive training on all types of women's heart disease. And I asked her about this. I said, "Why?" And I asked the interventionist as well. And these are all women who work with women patients. Who said, "Why does it take so long to get that diagnosis?" And they said, "Well, it's because they have to be 100% sure that it's the myocardial bridge causing the issues, because for
mhm,
many of those patients, it's not. Myocardial bridges don't cause issues, but there is a certain subset of the population that does have them, where the issues can be pretty severe, but they have to rule out everything else first. So that's why they said it takes so long to really, for those who have to get unroofed and
mhm.
they're that severe, because they're not just, when they decide to open you up and have open heart surgery to unroof. I mean, that is after they've exhausted all possible option. And we know
Right.
it's definitely a tough surgery. I mean, if I had to do it again, obviously I would, because I needed to. But if there was an alternative, I definitely would have taken the alternative. But that's what they were telling me, was that is why. It's just they have to rule out everything else before, because they can't say for sure it is the myocardial bridge. There's just so many tests and so many things that they have to run to make sure that is the correct thing, because that is the last possible option, is to open someone up. I mean, I had basically 3 inches. I don't know the exact centimeters, but it was the equivalent of about 3 inches.
That is significant, Michelle.
Yeah, it was severe. That's why they said, when Dr. Schnittger came out of the bridge study, she said, "It's much longer than we thought, and it's a little bit deeper than we thought." And I said, "Okay." And
And
then
I
when
hear that too. Like,
yes.
most people are but the heart cath and the heart CT can only tell you but so much, and most of the time when people come out of surgery, they're told it was way, way more significant than originally believed.
Oh, absolutely. And I went in, and my surgeon, who was fabulous, who worked with Dr. Schnicker, and Dr. Boyd, did, probably like 500 unroofings, before he went to our hospital. And that's one of the reasons they hired him, was to come over and kind of perform these rare heart surgeries. He
Mhm,
said, we went in and it was longer than we thought. And they had a video. They took a video of them he showed it to me, of them unroofing my heart. And it was just crazy how the artery, once it's unroofed, just starts filling with blood. It's just, I wish I had that video, because it was pretty profound.
wow. So did the stent stay in?
Yes. So I have 3
Okay.
stents in my LAD. I mean, they're not going to come
Mhm.
out. Can't take them out.
No.
And I mean, just, I've had multiple scans, multiple treadmill tests. I've had a few heart caths, no, a couple of heart caths since my unroofing
Mhm.
surgery, and it's because I've had so many post-surgery. I have pretty severe vasospasms, and so I had one day where I just had round-the-clock vasospasms. I had about 8 of them, and so they thought for sure that there was a
Mm.
blockage, and they went in and they're like, "Your arteries look better than they did before you had unroofing surgery." So it's getting better, but I do have a rare heart disease. I do have vasospastic angina that is controlled by multiple different medications. And it's honestly like biohacking our way through it to figure out what's going to work, because things will work.
Mhm.
A certain cocktail of medication will work for a while, and then it won't. And then we have to adjust and hope that something else works. But things are going really well now. I have a good cocktail of medication that's working and has been working probably for the last 4 months. But just to give you some context, I was having vasospasm probably once every 1 to 2 weeks, that I would have to take like 2 nitroglycerin tablets for them to go away. The episodes would last about a half hour. And it's been about 4 months since I've had one.
That sounds really difficult from one vasospasm friend to another. Ouch.
Yeah, it's very difficult to manage, because
Mhm.
they kind of sideline you. and you
Oh,
never
yeah.
know when they're going to happen. I mean, this is living with heart disease. And I now have Dr. Nadiri. She's a female heart specialist. She specializes in rare women's heart diseases. And even
Where is she located?
she's in Northern California. She's at Kaiser Permanente. So I had Kaiser, and we call Kaiser
Mhm.
Santa Clara like Stanford South because they pull all of their doctors and surgeons from Stanford. And
Okay.
Dr. Nadiri works with UCSF, Stanford. She's well known throughout the country. And even Dr. Hayes at the Mayo Clinic, in Rochester was like, "Oh, you have Dr. Nadiri, you're in very good hands." And she told me, look, as women age and they have vasospasms, when you change and you're going through perimenopause or menopause, these things tend to ramp up and then they tend to level off afterwards. She said, "Why don't you talk to your OBGYN and have them run your hormones and see how those are, what's going on?" And we did that. And what we found, and this is obviously really specific to women and not men, was that when I was having vasospasms, I had was all estrogen and no progesterone. So she's given me progesterone to level it out, and that's when I stopped having vasospasms.
So did you start the that's so hard to say,
Progesterone.
progesterone 4 months ago?
Yep. And it has
Okay.
nothing to do with heart disease, right? It's a birth control. It's
Right.
a birth control thing. But like I said, I'm biohacking my way through this, and I talked to Dr. Nadiri and I said, "Look, I know that my heart disease, there's never going to be a cure. And I know there's never going to be a cure because it costs hundreds of millions of dollars to do research. And the only way that heart research or any sort of medical research is done is A, if there's a grant that's coming from private donors or pharmaceutical companies, or B, if pharmaceutical companies run those studies. So if there's not enough
Yeah.
cause or not possible return on the investment for them to run these trials to possibly come up with a drug, you're not going to find a cure. So you have to really figure out what's going to work for you. And that's what I know I have to do. And my doctor
Yeah.
said, I hate to say this, Michelle, but I'm glad you realize that because your issue is so rare that they're not going to find a cure for you. You've just got to figure out how you're going to manage it and live with it.
Whew, that's I mean, in one way, go us for being advocates and standing in our power, right? Like, no matter if there's a cure or not, we still are powerful beings and our
Right.
bodies can tell us what the body needs. At the same time, that's kind of depressing. That's just the state of the healthcare system.
It's the state of the healthcare system in America, and
Mhm,
I want to say it's kind of the state of the healthcare system. I mean, in many different parts of the world too, because
mhm.
there's just not enough knowledge about myocardial bridges and what we go through. And thank goodness that Dr. Schnittger is doing more research and more research is coming to light and they're showing that there are more problems, but I always get this. This is the famous quote from doctors that medicine's not supposed to do that. That's not a side effect of the medicine because I'll take certain medications and I'll have a vasospasm. Like I took a steroid medication for a gut issue that I had, and boom, I started getting vasospasms again. And I stopped it and I didn't get vasospasms. And I said, I had a vasospasm. My body's reacting to it. And they said that, well, that's not a side effect. I said, of course it's not a side effect. They're not going to have people with heart disease in their trials. They
Mhm.
have healthy individuals in their trials. So of course they're not finding these side effects in healthy individuals. So my what I say to people is, look, you have heart disease. If you have a myocardial bridge, you have heart disease. It is a congenital abnormality of the heart.
Yeah.
That is a form of heart
Mhm.
disease. You have to find what works for you, whether it's Ayurvedic medicine, holistic medicine. I always said Western medicine will save me, Eastern medicine will sustain me.
Ooh, I like that. I'm gonna steal that.
You have to find what works for you because
Yeah.
there is not going to be a cure. And if there is going to be a cure, it's probably not going to be for 20, 30 years. It's going to be a long
Mhm.
time from now. So there's a lot of time in between that we have to find out how to best manage our symptoms, how to manage our life. But for those individuals who are having symptoms, being, wondering if they should be unroofed, having the bridge study, wondering, you know, what they need to do. I mean, it's advocate, advocate, advocate. Learn all you can about this, learn about your symptoms, learn everything about, you know, the disease, heart disease, the myocardial bridges. And when a doctor tells you no, you push, you've got to push. And I always say this, like,
Mhm.
I always say, your doctors are part of your medical team. You have a PhD in your body, in your own body. You know how your body works. And,
Mhm.
they're making guesses as well from their internal Rolodex of what they know from medical school. And in medical school, we know that myocardial bridges are taught that they're benign. They are taught that sometimes, now that, it's finding now that they are not benign in some population of the people that have them. However, have you ever seen The Big Sick?
I haven't yet. That's on my list.
Okay, you gotta watch it because in that
Okay.
movie, there's a scene in there where the girl goes in and she's in a coma and they're trying to figure out what's going on with her. And her mom goes, these doctors, they're just winging it too. They're just like us. They're no different from who we are. They're winging it just as much as we are at work. And I
Mhm.
I had never heard a more true statement because I mean, yes, they have medical degrees and they're very smart and they know what they're doing and they know how the heart works and the body works. But you know your body and you know what's normal and what's not normal, and you just have to push.
Yeah.
And you need to
I
get a new doctor.
Mhm. And I think I'm just thinking, like, how can we instill, like, how do you know when you need to push against these doctors, right? Because I'm just thinking about listeners for this podcast, and everyone's at a different stage in knowing their body and being and self-awareness. I mean, that just isn't something, that we're taught, unfortunately. I had already been through a couple of other health issues prior to my heart, so I had had a lot of practice basically being able to check in with my own body and know that something wasn't right. But and also I am well educated and I have an undergraduate degree in biology. So,
Right.
I kind of felt like I was one of the lucky ones that went into this with some training
Right. Right.
on how to, like, navigate the medical system. But what about those who, this is their first health issue, or maybe they didn't go to college, or they majored in something not related to, like, the medical field. Like, what do they do?
I mean, how many times have we ever heard a story of someone went to their doctor multiple times for a stomach ache and they finally went to a different doctor and they had a tumor the size of a grapefruit, or, I mean,
Too many times. It's too many times.
too
Yeah.
many times. And that's where in our culture, we've been taught that the doctors are like, we treat them as if they know everything. So if they say, well, no, this is what you have, or they give you a diagnosis or something, we're taught not to question it. And I think it's really important that you think of the doctors and the medical community as part of your team. You're hiring your team. If I'm a sales manager, I'm hiring the best people for my sales team. And I'm
Mhm.
going to have people who are collaborative, who work with me as a team and who listen. Now, it's the same with my medical team. I had a surgeon who really listened. I had a doctor, my cardiologist was fantastic. He really listened to me to the point where he said, in my expertise, I can no longer help you. I need to send you to this women's heart specialist for women with rare heart diseases. And he sent me to her. He put his training aside to make sure that I got the best care. So I think it's I mean, just if they're not willing to look at other things, if you're still having issues and your doctors aren't willing to look at other things, it's time to revisit new doctors. Because I was in a class with 30 women when we went to our Women Heart Symposium back in October. Every single woman was there because she advocated for herself. She was saved and because she was an advocate for her
Mhm.
own body. It wasn't the first time she went to the doctor, the second or the third time. It was she kept pushing. Some of those women changed doctors, got second opinions. So, I mean, I would say that all the women who were in that room and went to that symposium didn't matter. They knew something was wrong with her body. I think your gut will tell you. Follow
Oh,
your
yeah.
gut. If something's not right, it's not.
Well, that's all great. And, just thinking about my personal story, at first, I didn't wanna believe something was wrong because I was in the best shape of my life, and, newcomers to this podcast, go back to episodes 1 and 2 to hear my story in depth, but I remember when I eventually landed in front of the first cardiologist I ever saw, he told me what he was gonna go looking for
Mhm.
and hoped that he wasn't gonna find up any of it, and the 2 things that he was looking for were myocardial bridging and a bicuspid aortic valve. I
Okay.
end up having both,
Oh, wow.
and he said that the bicuspid valve wasn't a problem, which he was correct on that, so we're just monitoring it.
Right.
But then when he found out that I had a myocardial bridge, he said that that wasn't a problem either and told me just to take anxiety medication. And that's when I just knew that that wasn't right, like deep down. And
Right.
but here's the thing, it's like I had to let go of like this belief that I had that take the first doctor because he has a specialist degree, take his word. I just didn't feel good about how he was treating me, but I had to let go of the authority of it all. And I
Yes.
think that's what a lot of
100%.
people, especially women, there's
Yes.
like some authority there that just needs to go away. Like
Yes.
we are the authority
You're
of
the
our
authority.
bodies.
You are the authority of your body.
Yep. Not the doctor.
Yes.
The doctor
And
might have an opinion.
right. And that's when you have to, like I said, push. And if you have to change doctor, you have to change doctor. You got to get a
Mhm.
second opinion.
Well,
Um,
what really upset me, Michelle, was that I I was reading all my own reports, and I'm finding out through
I
conversations
did the
that
same thing.
people usually don't read their reports.
You have to
They
read
just
your own
go,
reports.
"You have to," and you might have to go to Google school and, like, look up
Yes.
terms, and it's
Yes.
worth the time.
It is.
Hey, if anything, you're broadening your vocabulary. Like, what's wrong with that, right? But
Right.
go to, Google Medical School and teach yourself how to read these reports because I read first about the myocardial bridge, the night that the report came in after my heart CT, and I kept waiting for the doctor's office to call. He had his, like, nurse call me and say, "The doctor doesn't feel like anything's wrong. You just need to keep working with your therapist." And by that point, I couldn't even breathe on a walk, and I'll just never forget it. And this doctor had trained at Stanford with Dr. Schnittger, and here
Yeah.
he's telling me that myocardial bridging wasn't a problem. And so I referred myself to Stanford. I asked him to refer me, and he told me that that wasn't appropriate.
Why?
So I called Dr. Schnittger myself. Like, that's what I had
Good
to
for you.
do.
And that's what you have to do. You have to just say, move aside. I'm taking over
You
now.
are fired.
Yeah. It's okay to fire your doctor. It is
Mhm,
1,000% okay. And to get another one, they're on your team. If somebody wasn't doing what you needed on your team to move you towards your goals, they would not be the right fit and you would get rid of that. It is the same
mhm.
thing for your medical team. I mean,
Yeah.
I know that I have a medical team at Stanford that if I ever have to leave Kaiser, I can go to Stanford and I'm going to be fine because I have a great medical team there as well. But it
Mhm,
took years of sifting through and pushing and studying. I mean, I was reading journals out of like the Chinese School of Medicine. I took my data. I knew that doctors needed data. That's what they responded to. They didn't respond to feelings. They responded to if I could calculate my data. And so I had charts and I captured my own data and I'd say, here, look, this is my data. I mean, and that's what they really responded to, and that's when I think when I told Dr. Schnicker, "Look, I'm occluding at 7% a month on average based on the data that I points that I've taken for myself." I think that really was like, "Oh, okay." Because they can respond to that. And if you
mhm.
collect your own data, I mean, I don't care if it's on your iPhone in your notes, whatever it is, have your own chart, create your own spreadsheet, That's going to that those numbers, if you can give your doctor numbers, that's concrete data versus your
Yeah.
feelings.
Wise words. Absolutely. And, because the truth of the matter is they also have to be, like you were saying earlier in our conversation, they have to make sure that the surgery is going to fix the problem because sadly, they have to worry about malpractice, but it would be an
Yes.
absolute bummer if you had an open heart surgery and it didn't fix the problem. So I totally respect that they need as much information as possible. And
Right.
still, it is hard to put our gut feelings into data.
You're right. It is. But I was able to be like, okay, when I run, when I get my heart rate up to here, I start to feel dizzy and I'm in shape. Like I should not be feeling dizzy. And,
Mm-mm.
I was always wondering, how come after I go on a run, I'm feeling dizzy? Like when I'm fully, like, it was just oddest, right? So,
Yeah.
keeping all those data points. I mean, unfortunately, when I had unroofing surgery, it did not fix my vasospasms, which we thought it would, but they're getting better. And what I realized through this whole healing process post surgery was vasospasms have a lot more to do with just your heart. I mean, they really are about the whole biochemistry of your body.
Mhm.
And also, it's just the whole biochemistry of your body. Like your body has a memory, and I was working with therapists and acupuncture to really go back through and retrain my body because my body was like auto response of, okay, we have to have our anxiety is going to be raised now because there's a heart event. But so it's
Mhm.
been actually taking me to do a lot of like therapeutical retraining of my body. I don't take any anxiety medication. They wouldn't give them to me when I wanted them, and that was good because I didn't want that to be a crutch either. So it's just been a lot of therapy, a lot of meditation. I actually go to a support group for people with potentially life-threatening illnesses. So a lot of
Mhm.
cancer patients, heart patients, and that has been incredibly helpful. So I think if you can find a support group, and even in the cancer community, it was advocating for themselves to get their
Right.
diagnosis. I mean, it's not just from heart disease. It goes across if you feel something's right in your body, it's not.
Right, and I think that's where social media has been so helpful with the Facebook support group, but whatever for listeners today, no matter what condition you're struggling with, I bet you, $100, I'll give you $100 if you don't find the support group for you. I am amazed at the amount of different heart support groups I'm a part of on
Oh, I
Facebook,
know.
and then all the hashtags you can follow on Instagram. I'm not a TikToker. Maybe I need to become one, but I'm sure that there are people on TikTok who are also sharing their story. I mean, that's why I started this podcast because even though I have such a wonderful network here and a loving husband and my dad and my stepmom have been amazing, it still can be a lonely process because heart surgery is so personal. It's touching your soul, it touches your essence, and
It does.
it's hard to find comfort unless like, I just talking to you over video today, even though this is the first time we've met, like, "Oh, yay, I have another heart buddy." Like, we just get each other, right?
Someone who gets it. Yes.
And that's what I want for listeners for this podcast. I there's just so much you can gain from knowing you're not alone, even if you're just listening to another story. And I
Right.
truly believe it does help in the healing because if you have hope, your body just seems to relax a little bit
Yes.
and then it can like heal more efficiently.
Yes. And then that's why WomenHeart was founded was we call it sister support and sister match, where if you are a woman with heart disease, we want to support you and we want to get you a heart sister. We do red scarves, we call it heart scarves, or we send out, we do red bags of courage. We can't really go into the hospitals. Not all hospitals let us go in anymore because of HIPAA laws and that kind of thing. But, we have a sister match. So Women Heart has been a great support for me. I thought I had a crazy story, but there is this one woman that I was in my class with who had cardiac arrest and was flatline for 50 minutes, and they continued to do CPR on her, and the paramedics, they were gonna call it in in the fire department, and then not her father, her husband said, "Don't, this woman's a fighter, she's coming back." Lo and behold, she came back, and that woman is a pistol. And
Wow.
so you need to have people fighting for you as well.
Mhm, mhm. And great segue. I want you to tell us more about Women Heart. And so, Michelle, what is your role with Women Heart exactly?
So I'm a community educator. So I offer education to, whatever community is out there. I am really talking about women, heart disease prevention, how to recognize signs of a heart attack or different types of heart disease, and really get women who have heart disease issue or maybe live with somebody with heart disease or are at risk of heart disease, the resources they need, get them matched up with a sister, with a group. We do have community groups, throughout the country, and get them a part of that so that they can get the resources and education and support that they need. Because
That is
living
incredible.
living with heart disease, like you said, it can be a very lonely and isolating process. Your family, even though they see you go through it, they can't really relate to what you're going through. But those women in Women Heart, they can because they've all been through it and they're all living with heart disease. When I was going to the symposium, I said, I don't know. I'm afraid to get on the plane. I might have a heart episode. They're like, if you have one here, it's okay. At least somebody has one once here. He goes, this is what living with heart disease is all about. So I was about
Right.
to go to a conference with women where I knew that I was going to be taken care of if I had a heart issue. And I was at the Mayo Clinic. So I was going to be okay. But it is an amazing organization. It's run by an amazing CEO. It's all women and it's just a fabulous organization. And it's, yeah, Women Heart, www.womenheart.org. And if anybody wanted to be a part of it or look for a sister to help a sister match your, whatever part of the country you're in, you can email me. I can help get you connected.
So, is that your full-time job?
No, that's volunteer. That's one of my volunteer position. My full-time job is I work in the natural food industry. So I work for an organic dairy company and all pasture raised organic dairy, just absolutely wonderful natural product. One of the things that when I first got involved, in helping educate people was I wanted to teach people how to eat for heart disease because when I was in my cardiac rehab class, yeah,
Mhm,
a lot of people did not know how to eat healthy. They didn't know what choices to make. And it made me really sad because so food centric. I've been in the food industry
mhm.
for years. We're all about connecting and sharing food and so I did have a page called The Happy Heart. I no longer have that. I will probably start that again. I went off Facebook for, almost a year and a half and now I'm back on. But so I'm trying to restart all my pages and everything, but my full-time job is really just advocating for organic dairy, getting dairy better for you dairy that's better for the heart into stores all across the country.
Incredible, Michelle, and lastly, I also know that you're a mom.
Mhm. Yes, and
So
that
here you are being a mom and managing your heart condition, and just I wanna normalize that for other listeners, other women who are mom, friend, coworker, volunteer, and managing heart symptoms. Like, it's juggling all the time.
it is,
Tell
but
us what that's like.
well, one of the reasons I pushed so hard and advocated for myself so hard was because I am a single mom. My daughter needed a mom. She
Mhm.
needed me to be alive, and I'll never forget when she was there during my open heart surgery and seeing her for the first time and how that affected her because it does affect the kids as well. But my daughter's well versed in heart disease. She knows if mommy's having a vasospasm, she knows what to do. She even gets my nitroglycerin for me sometimes. She really knows how to take care of me if I have those situations, if I'm having what we call an episode. It's been very hard on her. So helping kids manage through your heart disease is really important as well. But we definitely, she's a kid that's grown up with a mom who's sick and has had a life-threatening illness. And so that's actually been really hard on her. But we are working through it. And she's also had her own therapy, to be able to cope with having a mom with a life-threatening illness and what that's like.
That is really important. And therapy for everyone involved, I think, is very important.
It is. It really is, and it's really helped us both, and, yeah, I can say it get your kids into if you're a mom out there or a father, you're dealing with, heart disease, making sure your children have support because it's very scary. My daughter always thought she was going to lose me, and
Mm.
letting them know that their feelings are real and what they're going through is real, and that their feelings are okay, and helping them work through those anxieties is really important.
Wise advice. Michelle, thank you so much for coming on to the Heart Chamber. I feel like I've made a new friend. I
Yes.
can tell that you are doing great things for Women Heart, and I appreciate your willingness to share your story.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. And thank you for letting me share about Women Heart and share my story. And I hope everybody who is suffering out there or just starting their journey with their diagnosis gets the support and the help that they need. And always here to help. So
Thank you.
thank you.
And that's the show for today. Thank you for spending part of your day with me. The Heart Chamber exists because of you. If you find value in this podcast, consider donating to this cause. Go to theheartchamberpodcast.com and go to the donate link. And hey, while you're there, feel free to leave me a voicemail. I want to hear from you. Lastly, don't forget to leave a review and make sure you subscribe so you never miss another Tuesday edition of the Heart Chamber. Thanks again. Have a great week, and I'll be back next week with more stories of open heart surgery and recovery.